No matter what kind of projects you have around the shop, if you're looking for some tips and help, it's time for Sam's Garage, presented by Lund International, with Sam Mamolo and Sam Madavi.
When you're putting your bulkhead connector together, it's secured by this bolt. Read the instructions. You want to tighten it tight, but you don't want to over tighten it. Also, included in the kit, you got some dielectric compound. Use it. You got all brand new terminals here. If you put dielectric compound on the terminals, when you push this together, not going to corrode. It's going to protect what you're putting together. So this goes down in here. And by the way, the instructions tell you there's a couple of holes from the factory. You need to open them up a little bit with a drill bit. There's really nothing to it. And then this will go down in here. Now, I've also, following the directions, laid the wires out. This is the harness right here. Now this harness comes like this and it's all neatly put together from Painless with tie wraps. But you want to put something on it to cover it so it doesn't abrade and so on. This is awesome. It's split. It's got plenty of memory, doesn't it?
Oh, it's great. I mean, if you have a bulk in the wire someplace, it'll just expand around that bulk and just fit real tight.
And of course, we laid the wires out according to the instructions. You get plenty of wire. These are marked. This is our tack pickup and coil power. Here we have the original stator feed, and it's probably a 14 gauge wire, but this came with a 37 amp alternator. That's fine for that, and an external regulator. When you're building these cars, you're going to put 100, 110, 120 amp alternator on it. You need a bigger stator wire. This also comes in the kit. This kit's really complete. This is 6 gauge.
6 gauge.
That's heavy.
It's heavy. It'll handle anything you put on there.
All this comes in the kit.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've got what? This is pretty soft.
Yeah, it's a real nice new boot for the back of the alternator. Makes it nice and clean.
Right.
On there. So, you know, first thing we'd want to do, we've already stripped the wire. We'll put this on here and slide it on there. And we got a 3/8 strip there.
All right.
And a boot back. And we have our terminal. But before we put that terminal on there, let's talk about terminals just a second.
Okay.
All these terminals are made on a machine and it's rolled. So when you have this terminal, there is a split because it's just started out with a flat piece of metal.
Right.
So it has a split where they roll it together. So when we dimple crimp this terminal, which will put a dimple in it to secure the wire onto the terminal, we always want to make sure the dimple is on the back side of the split.
Sure, and that's also true with your insulated terminals.
Correct.
We're going to use heat shrink, so let's put this on next.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, we're going to put our heat shrink on.
So we'll put it in here. Dimples on the back side of the split.
There we go.
Feed that on there like that. Right. It comes out perfect on the end right there, Sam.
Yep.
We'll put a little force on it.
Hey.
It's on there permanent.
Absolutely. And that makes a really nice crimp. You put your heat shrink tubing, take your heat gun, and then of course this will be ready to go in the back of the alternator. The kit comes complete with this MIDI fuse, which is 100 amp. And of course you even get the screws to secure it.
Sure.
So what we're going to do is, where this is coming off of battery power, we're going to fuse it. All right, let's go ahead and make this up. I'll start mounting this on the other fender, and then we'll go and see what Sammy's doing inside.
You see that I've already got the wires ran back here. I've got everything connected. What we've done is ground off the metal to get down the shiny metal to have a good ground. I've got that connected. I'm going to make sure that it's tight, just a little snug. And then now I'm going to go ahead and take my wire loom, and I've got the bigger one, and I'm going to go ahead and loom the wires.
Yeah, that'll make it look nice.
Absolutely, and it protects it.
Yeah.
And once I'm done looming it,
who knows what they're going to put in the trunk later on, right?
You never know. And then you want to tie it up out of the way. So what do you think? We did a good job?
Yeah, it looks very professional. Obviously, you've done this before, Sam.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
And we really appreciate you coming down.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's always great to come.
Always
great to come visit and have a good time.
We'll be right back.
Sam's Garage, presented by Lund International, is being brought to you by Low-Car Performance Products. Quality, plain and simple. Stage 8, the world's best locking fastener. Brothers Truck Parts, your #1 source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GM truck restoration. Stampede Automotive Accessories. Deflect it, protect it, experience it with Stampede Automotive Accessories. Welcome to the Brothers Truck Parts Workshop.
All right, we got this pretty little GMC 1500 here. Now the front end's been lowered, the brake upgrade done, the back's way up in the air. So we're going to install a flip kit and bring this back down. With new wheels and tires, the truck's going to look great.
It's going to look killer. We're also going to put in a C-notch kit so that we don't have the axle hitting the bottom of the frame once we get it down. And for those guys at home, you know, we're doing this on a GMC, but this goes cross-platform. You can do this for, this applies to your Fords, your Dodges, basically anything that has the axle below the springs and that you're trying to lower.
We're going to take the shocks off, spring U-bolts, take the bolts off front and rear, slide the springs out, and then put them under the axle. And now we'll take the nuts off the spring U-bolts, which strap the spring with this bracket to
now
the
make
axle
sure,
tube.
before you do this, you're going to make sure you're supported. The back of the frame of this is supported with the jack, but at home you're going to want to make sure you get your frame supported before you take the U-bolts off so that you don't lose the axle out from under the frame.
Absolutely, the front wheels are chock.
Kit comes with everything. Spacers, plates, U-bolts, longer U-bolts.
Okay, front spring bolt, rear spring bolt coming off. That came right out, huh? Good. Gonna take off the rear spring shackle now. And we're going to replace these shackles. See, these bushings will all be, as you can see, they're rotted. We're going to put our new spring shackle on, put a little bit of grease in here, and a little bit on here. That'll keep it from making any noise. Make things move nice and smooth. Put this to, don't tighten it up until we get everything assembled. That way we don't put the bushings in a bind.
We've chosen to go ahead and put the bolts in the rear shackle first. This is going to hold it in position, and this way we can use the rear shackle to slide it back and forth as we try to put the front bolts in. I'm going to need a second pair of hands maybe back there. Just hold it back a little further. There we go. All right.
Perfect, huh?
Oh, there we go.
Back a little bit. Oop. Done.
All right, so while Sam's out looking for some parts, let me just explain why we're doing this. So initially, the axle is below the leaf springs. And when it's below the leaf springs, you can't lift it very high. So what we've done is put the axle on top of the leaf springs. That automatically lowered the chassis on where the axle center is, and we've gotten about a 5-inch drop out of that just automatically by putting the axle on top. Now, we've added a couple more inches by adding longer shackles in the back. And so effectively, we lowered the truck without really doing anything other than putting the axle on top. And for you garage guys, this may seem like an overwhelming project, but it's actually pretty easy. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is maybe a 4. And I know I've got Sam here helping me out, but realistically, by yourself, you could probably do this project in about 2.5 to 4 hours, depending on how much work it is in disassembly, whether you get in any sticking points with rusty bolts and that. Anyway, that's why we did it. We're going to continue on with the project, as well as put our C-notch in.
All right, we've got everything just about tightened up now. And of course, you get a nice new set of shocks in the kit. And a set of shock extender brackets, what they do is change the angle of the shock. That's a good deal.
Yeah, that's important because otherwise the angle of the shock is too steep and you lose the effectiveness of the dampening in the shock. So this is a well-engineered kit, it's complete, and it sets up the shock angle right so your ride quality stays the same.
Absolutely.
All right, now that we got our lowering done, we need to make clearance for the axle because the axle's up against the bumper. So what we did, went ahead and removed the bumpers, and we're gonna install the C-notch kit. And you can see that this notch here will go into the frame. So this is gonna fit sort of like this, but from the outside. And that's gonna give us some extra clearance up in the frame like this for the axle to come up and give us that extra travel back that we lost when we lowered the truck. Okay, now I marked my cut that I need to make, but very important, before we make the cut, I'm ready to go, but I wanna make sure that I've got my brake lines out of the way, as well as my wiring harness, so we don't cut any of that stuff while we're taking this notch out of the frame.
All right, the truck's lowered in the front and it's done properly. And of course, got brake repair. We've lowered the rear. The truck's gonna handle good. Make sure you bleed your brakes, get the front end aligned. We got a few more things to do to this truck, don't you?
Yeah, now that the outside looks killer, we got to do the inside, but that's for another day.
All right.
This is the DS18 Project Supra.
Now this Supra is going to be getting a lot of horsepower, and the factory brakes on the twin turbo application is pretty good from the factory, but it's only good for about 320 to 450 horsepower. And all you people out there who upgrade your engine and make more horsepower, you tend to forget about the important things, which is stopping and handling. What good is a bunch of horsepower going to do you if you can't stop or if you can't make it around the corner? Now normally you guys, when you're doing a brake job, you're not going to sit there and let the caliper hang by its cable, but we're going to be replacing the brake cable, and one, they're completely old, and two, we're putting on a big brake kit from StopTech, so therefore they're going to come with brand new stainless steel hoses as well. If you guys notice, on the bracket that you're going to be installing to hold the caliper in, which is this bracket right here, and the caliper is going to be a side mount caliper, you want to read right there, it's going to show you that the front is and where the rotor goes with arrows, so you don't mess it up. Now we're going to tighten that with air, but then we're going to go back and confirm it with your hand. Okay, you want to torque it down. These are brakes. There you go. Don't hog on it too much. All right. Then when you're installing your rotor, you want to grab a couple of lug nuts to hold your rotor in place while you're working on the brake system, because it makes it very difficult to be trying to line up the caliper and its brake pads if your rotor is flopping around. It is tagged with a left and a right because of the way the holes are drilled and the orientation of the vents in the middle of the rotor. It's very important to get that process right. We're going to remove the brake line last because we're going to be dripping fluid. So we're going to let that hang until we put on the caliper. And these calipers are very nice from StopTech. StopTech not only builds a brake system for aesthetics or looks and appearance, but they actually engineer their brake systems to work as a balanced package and perform its optimum on your application. These are locking acorn nuts, so they don't back down on you. Most brake systems use shims so that you can position the rotor in the middle of the caliper just perfect. StopTech engineers their kits so well that you actually don't need to use any shims. It bolts on as if you're doing a brake job with a stock setup. It's that simple. You want to try not to scratch this. So just very nicely pull this out. It's powder coated, not painted. We'll grab our brake pads, make sure they're the front ones. And they go in nice and easy. All right, now we're going to put the caliper brake pad retaining bracket back on using the hardware. You want to spin the rotor, making sure you got perfect clearance and everything spins. Making sure you got clearance on both the left and right side of the brake pad, so that once you push them in by pumping the brake pedal, everything still rolls correctly and everything clearances everything else. Now we can remove the caliper, the factory one, along with the brake hose, and quickly install the new one so that we don't make a huge mess on the floor. And then we're going to pump out the brake fluid and put in race fluid, .5 synthetic race fluid, because we're going to make 600 to 800 horsepower, correct? We've got our big brake setup from StopTech installed. And you guys want this because you're going to add a bunch of horsepower to the car, and the first thing you want to do is think about safety. It's not cool when you're making a bunch of horsepower and you got to slam on the brakes and you got nothing but brake fade. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go onto the suspension, and then we're going to go ahead and install the rear brakes.
You know I'm all about performance and performance tuning. Last year we put a Hypertech in my 2015 Silverado. Truck's doing great, Chris. I'm getting 25 to 27 on the road, highway speed. And I'm with Chris from Hypertech. You got the newest unit. Tell me about that.
Sam, this is our new Max Energy 2.0 programmer. It has an upgraded screen that's backlit, has new menus on it to make it easier to navigate, to pick the options that you want. You can also save up to 3 custom tuning parameters. So like on your truck, if you wanted to have different tuning options for when you're towing versus when you're, at the track running something, you don't have to go back in and remember the settings. You can just save the tune and name it. You'll plug it back in your truck and just hit that button and it remembers everything for you.
Real user-friendly, huh?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Right. And this is so simple. You don't even have to open the hood, get your hands dirty. You can tune. Now, tell me about this Colorado here.
Oh, this is cool. This is our 2016 Chevy Colorado Z71 truck that we did a build on for a consumer giveaway. It's called Project Blue Chip. We're going to give this truck away to a lucky Hypertech customer in July next year. So all you have to do, if you purchase a Hypertech product, is go on bluechip.com, get the serial number off your product, and enter it in, and you're registered to win this awesome vehicle. Put a 5.5-inch BDS lift on it, 33-inch Pro Comp tires and wheels. We've got some other cool companies that partner with us on this build to make it a really nice looking truck here.
Awesome. Can I enter?
You're not eligible, Sam.
Darn. This is a beautiful truck. And of course, some lucky winner in July is going to have this in their driveway. So check them out. If you're ready to do some tuning, you want something that's easy to use, it's quick, you can do custom tunes. Remember the Hypertech Max Energy 2.0, it's ready now. Jump on it and it'll make your life a lot better.
Sam's Garage, presented by Lund International, has been brought to you by DS18. We like it loud. Appalachian Tourism. Virginia is for lovers. Easy Run Engine Stand. American Engineering. American Quality. American Customer Service. Tonneau Pro. Quality, versatility, affordability. Get covered with Tonneau Pro.
If you guys are dealing with humidity like we do here in Atlanta, every single time you get into your car to go to work, you can smell the mildew and the muskiness in your garage, especially on a rainy day. Well, Flex-A-Lite Pro Grade 200 dehumidifier, they've thought of everything. Not only does it have a rugged case, but they've got a drain hose, no pan to empty, no resetting of the unit. Run the drain hose outside the shop or in a shop drain, and you don't worry about it. You've got a very intelligent display. It comes with an instruction sheet, so you got to read it because it is so smart. You can set up your job hours. If you're getting lazy that day, you want to go home around lunchtime, set it up for 4 hours, go home at noon. If you're going to work all day, set it up for 8 or 10 hours, and you can forget about it. It's got a built-in humidistat. On an 80-degree day, it'll actually pull 74 liters of water. So, if you guys are dealing with humidity like we do, make sure that you get yourself the Flex-A-Lite Pro Grade 200 dehumidifier to take care of all your humidity.
It's time for the Lund International Custom Shop.
You know, everybody's having fun with Jeeps today. They're super popular and they're doing a lot of things to them. Jacking them up, big tires, doing all kinds of stuff. From the factory, it's got a rubber bumper. This is a rugged vehicle. So we got Carlos from Rampage here. You got a bumper for this thing. Tell me a little bit about it.
Sure do, Sam. We actually do. We have a nice bumper that we made out of 3/16 steel, heavy duty. We got an integrated winch plate that allows you to mount your winch. It's sunken down, so it doesn't restrict any airflow going into your radiator.
That's critical.
Yeah, and another thing we did is we also made a provision for the factory lights, so you can mount factory or aftermarket lights on them.
On the bracket on the Jeep, you got 4 holes. The original equipment bumper had 4 studs on each side. That's a lot of work trying to line it up, so they made the installation real easy, and they supplied stainless steel hardware that'll go right in there. So just having to have 2 studs on each side makes it line up real easy.
Go ahead and get one side, one nut on each side on, so these guys don't kill themselves trying to hold this bumper in place.
And while we're down here, let's make sure we snap in the lights as well. Flip in the light.
Okay. So the winch sits right down in here. The fair lead bolts right to the bumper.
I had mentioned before, Sam, it's got the integrated winch plate in there and it's sunken down. So you still get all this airflow going into your radiator, especially when you're up rock crawling.
Yeah, this will really finish off the front of your Jeep. Got your nice bar here, you got winch down low. You're all set to go. And by the way, this winch has got a rope, not a cable. That's the way you want to go. Let's put some flares on.
We've installed a 6-inch skyjacker lift on this vehicle, and we've got 37-inch tall Falcon tires. So we're going to have to install a set of under the Lund family of brands, bushwhacker fenders.
Don't get scared as you hear all the popping noise. It's actually all the factory brackets that we're not going to use anyways. We get new components to mount with the flare itself. Once we break this off, we mount the inner liner in here, and then we're going to trim the inner liner so we can reuse that piece. Next thing we need to do is start putting our inner structure supports for the flares themselves. Just have nuts and bolts that go in, so we put our washer in our bolt, and then we have some nylon nuts that go on the back side. So now that we got our structure in, our structure's been bolted down, we have our clips in place. We've already mounted our rubber seal that mounts into. It's double-sided tape, so we have to put that on. We have our LED light that we bolted into place, and we crimped our wires together. And now we're going to take these little sheet metal screws here, go into our clips under, and screw the flare in on the inside. Our tire's protected, it makes it legal. We left this little tail here because we don't want to pull off all the double-sided tape on here. One thing that we also provide too is we have this little neat tool, and what happens is sometimes when you pull this out or when you push it in, the rubber gets stuck inside. So with this tool, you're able to pick it out and pull it all the way out. And Sam, I'll hold it on this side, and you go ahead and finish off on there. We should get a lot of pressure in there in place. Perfect. And now we got nice coverage for our 37-inch tires.
Look how good that looks. Look how much clearance you got.
And again, Sam, what's neat about this is if you go in with a 35-inch tire, you don't put a lift on the Jeep, you can just mount the flares. It's a lot cheaper than putting a whole lift kit on.
Absolutely.
You still get the coverage.
Rampage makes this nice steel rear bumper. Both the front and rear bumper, by the way, have D-ring mounts. And you get this tire carrier that opens out with your door. Got a tire mount, accessory mount for your gas can, your hijack, whatever. Then you get this bracket that's fully adjustable. And of course your spare will mount on this, but it'll be straight up and down. Show them that one there, buddy.
We also make another bracket that's included with the bumper. You mount it on this and it gives you the slant back position. So you can have your tire looking like the Baja pre-runner look. And it also matches our Trail View frameless soft top, so it gives you that whole slant back look.
Hey Sam, come check out what a great job James did on finishing up this painless wiring harness.
Wow, looks good. Loomed it all up nice. It's nice and neat. He does great work.
He really does.